The moon base Artemis 7 was quiet, the kind of quiet that only comes after something terrible has happened. Smoke curled from broken vents. Lights flickered in the long corridors, casting strange shadows on the walls. Most of the crew were gone, either dead or missing. Only a few remained, and they moved like ghosts through the wreckage. Chris Dawson sat slumped against a console in the comms room, his uniform torn and stained with soot. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, but he barely noticed. His hands shook as he typed commands into the terminal, trying to bring the main transmitter back online. Outside the reinforced window, the black sky stretched endlessly, dotted with stars that offered no help. The attack had come without warning. One moment, everything was normal. Engineers running diagnostics, medics checking supplies, kids in the school module laughing over a game. The next, alarms blared and the walls shook as alien ships fired on the base. The Cathar hegemony had struck fast and hard. They didn't ask questions. They didn't offer surrender. They just destroyed. Chris had been on duty when it happened. He'd seen the sensor blips appear, dozens of them, moving faster than anything human made. He'd tried to warn command, but the comms went dead before he could finish his sentence. Then the explosion started. Bulkheads sealed automatically, trapping people in sections that would soon lose air. He'd run through smoke-filled halls, dragging 2 injured technicians to the emergency shelter before doubling back for the comms array. Now, hours later, he was alone, or nearly alone. A faint cough came from the hallway. He turned, hand on his sidearm, but it was just Maya, one of the junior medics. Her arm was wrapped in a makeshift bandage and her face was pale. "They're gone, aren't they?" she asked, voice hoarse. Chris didn't answer right away. He looked back at the screen. The transmitter was almost ready. One last message. One last chance, maybe not all, he said softly. But most. Maya leaned against the doorframe, breathing hard. "What are you doing?" "Sending a warning," Chris said. "Not to them. To us." He finished the final sequence. The system hummed to life. A green light blinked, transmission ready. He took a deep breath and spoke into the mic, his voice steady despite everything. "This is Lieutenant Chris Dawson of Artemis 7. If anyone is listening, this is Earth's final warning. Pause your attacks or we stop pretending to be civilized." He hit send. The message shot out into space, unencrypted, raw, and clear. It would travel faster than light, carried by quantum relays built into every human ship and station. Within minutes it would reach Earth, Mars, the Belt, and beyond. And it would reach the enemy too. Maya stared at him. "What does that even mean?" Chris turned off the console. The room went darker. "It means we've been playing nice for too long." Back on Earth, in a secure underground chamber beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Lisa Monroe watched the message appear on her screen. She didn't flinch. She'd expected this, maybe even hoped for it. For years, humanity had shown restraint. They'd signed treaties, shared technology, offered aid, even to species that sneered at them. They'd built schools on neutral worlds, sent doctors to war zones, opened trade routes with former enemies. All in the name of peace, but peace only works when both sides want it. The Cathar hegemony had never wanted peace. They saw kindness as weakness. They tested humanity again and again, raiding supply ships, sabotaging colonies, assassinating diplomats, and each time Earth had responded with patience, with offers to talk. Now, after the massacre on the moon, that patience was gone. President Daniel Hayes stood beside Monroe, arms crossed, face unreadable. He'd just addressed the world an hour ago, urging calm, promising justice. But in this room, with only his closest advisors, he didn't have to pretend. "Project Iron Veil," he said quietly. "Activate it." Monroe nodded. She tapped a command into her wristpad. Deep in hidden bunkers across the planet, dormant systems powered on. Factories that had been idle for decades began to hum. Satellite networks reconfigured. Encryption protocols shifted. Humanity's true face, the one it had hidden behind smiles and handshakes, was waking up. Far above Earth, in low orbit, Captain Nora Bennett stood on the bridge of the stealth cruiser, Aurora. She'd just received the president's order. Her crew waited in silence, eyes on her. "We go dark," she said. "No signals. No replies. Just watch." The Aurora's lights dimmed. Its engines shifted to silent mode. Within seconds, it vanished from every tracking system, not destroyed, just hidden, like a predator slipping into the grass. On Mars, in a dusty repair bay near the Valles Marineris, Engineer Jake Riley wiped grease from his hands and looked up at the sky. His tablet buzzed with the emergency alert. He read the message once, then again. A slow smile spread across his face. They finally said it, he muttered to no one. He walked over to a sealed cargo container marked agricultural supplies. He punched in a code, and the lid hissed open. Inside wasn't fertilizer or seeds, it was weapon parts, cloaking modules, and enough firepower to level a small city. Human engineers had been hiding these for years, just in case. Now, just in case had arrived. Back on the moon, Chris helped Maya into a survival pod. There wasn't much time. The hegemony ships were still out there, scanning for signs of life. The pod had enough air for 2 days and a weak distress beacon. Just enough to seem like a last hope, not a threat. "You'll be okay," Chris said, closing the hatch. "What about you?" Maya asked, eyes wide. "I've got one more thing to do." He sealed the pod and watched as it launched silently into the void, heading for a rescue point near lunar orbit. Then he turned and walked back toward the comms room. He wasn't leaving. He had to make sure the hegemony found nothing useful here. No data, no weapons, no bodies to study. He activated the base's self-destruct sequence set for 10 minutes. As he waited, he looked out the cracked window at Earth, blue and calm in the distance. He thought about his little sister back in Colorado, about the parks he used to walk in, about the way people held doors open for strangers. All that kindness, all that trust, it hadn't been fake. It had been real. But it had limits. The hegemony had crossed them. The countdown reached 0. Artemis 7 exploded in a silent flash, scattering debris across the lunar surface. No one saw it happen. No one mourned out loud. But across the solar system, humans felt it, the moment the mask came off. On the hegemony command vessel, Iron Maw, High Commander Vrak received the human broadcast. He laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "They threaten us? After we crushed their moon base like a bug?" His second-in-command, a younger officer named Zell, hesitated. "Sir, what if they mean it?" Vrak waved a clawed hand. "Let them try. They are soft. They build gardens on warships. They cry when soldiers die. They are not warriors," Zell didn't answer. But as he left the bridge, he couldn't shake the feeling that his commander was wrong. Very wrong. Somewhere in the dark between stars, the message kept traveling. Not just words. A promise. And promises once broken can never be unbroken. The hegemony did not listen. 3 days after the moon base fell, their warship struck again. This time, they hit the mining outpost on Ceres, the research station orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa, and a civilian transport hub near the asteroid belt. Each attack was swift, brutal, and meant to send a message. Humanity was small and resistance was pointless, but Earth did not respond the way they expected. No emergency broadcasts. No fleet scrambling to defend the colonies. No angry speeches from world leaders. Instead, silence. On Ceres, the domes went dark. Not from destruction, from choice. The lights inside were turned off. All communication signals stopped. The same happened on Europa. The research station's transmitters fell quiet. Even the transport hub, usually buzzing with cargo drones and chatter, became a ghost. Ships that should have been loading supplies just floated empty and still. The hegemony scouts reported back, confused. No bodies. No signs of panic, just nothing. Back on Earth, cities were calm on the surface. People went to work. Kids went to school. But beneath that calm, something had changed. In basements, garages, and hidden labs, humans worked quietly. In a dusty hangar outside Reno, Jake Riley wiped sweat from his brow as he welded a cloaking coil onto the hull of a civilian freighter. The ship looked ordinary, dented, old, painted with the logo of a grain company. But inside, its cargo bay held enough stealth tech to make it invisible to hegemony sensors. "We're not hiding anymore," he muttered to his teammate, a quiet woman named Lena. "We're hunting," Lena nodded, tightening a bolt. "They think we're just farmers and teachers." "Let them keep thinking that," Jake said. High above Venus, the stealth cruiser Aurora drifted in the planet's thick cloud cover. Captain Nora Bennett stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching a holographic map of the solar system. Red dots marked hegemony supply routes, long chains of armored freighters moving weapons and fuel toward the front lines. "Are we ready?" she asked. Her weapons officer, a young man named Eli, checked his console. Phase cloak is stable. We can get within 5 kilometers without being seen. Nora didn't smile. She didn't need to. Then let's follow them. Watch. Learn. Don't engage. The Aurora slipped deeper into the clouds, silent as a shadow. On Earth, protests began, not against the government but against the silence. In Chicago, a crowd gathered in Grant Park, holding signs that read, "Tell us the truth and we're not afraid." In Atlanta, students marched to City Hall, demanding to know what the military was planning. The government gave no answers. President Hayes made no new speeches, but in a small apartment in Portland, a retired teacher named Helen Briggs watched the news with her grandson. "They're scared," the boy said, pointing at the protesters on screen. Helen shook her head. "No, sweetie. They're waiting." "What for?" "For the other shoe to drop." She didn't explain further. She didn't need to. Everyone could feel it. The tension in the air. The way neighbors nodded a little longer when they passed on the street. The way stores stocked extra batteries and canned food just in case. Deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, General Lisa Monroe reviewed reports from every human outpost. All followed the same pattern. Go dark, stay hidden, preserve life. No heroics. No last stands. Just survival. "Project Iron Veil is spreading," said an aide, handing her a tablet. Monroe scrolled through the data. Civilian ships retrofitted with military-grade stealth. Power grids rerouted to underground backups. Medical teams trained in field surgery and silent evacuation. It wasn't just the military preparing. It was everyone. "They finally understand," she said. On Mars, in the red dust near the Tharsis region, a group of colonists buried 3 of their own in unmarked graves. No ceremony. No names on the stones. Just quiet respect. Afterward, they returned to their domes and began installing signal jammers on the rooftops. Back in orbit, the Aurora watched as a hegemony supply convoy passed within range. Eli's fingers hovered over the weapons panel. "Captain?" he asked. Nora shook her head. "Not yet, but we could take them out, one shot. They'd never see it coming." "That's not the point," Nora said. "We're not here to win a battle. We're here to win the war. And wars aren't won by shooting first. They're won by making the enemy wish they'd never started." Eli lowered his hand. Farther out, near Saturn's rings, a hegemony scout ship scanned a drifting human freighter. Sensors showed no life signs. No power, just a dead hulk. The scout moved on, unaware that inside, a crew of 6 waited in total darkness, breathing slowly, listening to the alien ship's engines fade into the distance. On Earth, in a dimly lit control room beneath Denver, analyst Ryan Cole stared at a wall of screens. Each one showed a different part of the solar system. Most were dark, but some flickered with tiny green blips, human ships, moving without signals, following enemy trails. His colleague, Maya Torres, rescued from the moon weeks earlier, stood beside him, sipping cold coffee. "They think we're broken," she said. Ryan nodded. "Good. Let them think that." He tapped a key and a new window opened. It showed a timeline. A plan, not for defense, for something else. "We spent decades playing nice," he said softly, "so they'd never see what we're really capable of." Maya looked at the screen, then at him. "And what are we really capable of?" Ryan didn't answer. He didn't have to. The data spoke for itself. Across the system, humans were vanishing not from fear but from strategy. Colonies powered down non-essential systems. Ships ran on minimal energy. Even Earth's orbital defenses appeared inactive. To the hegemony, it looked like surrender. But surrender wasn't on the table. In a hidden shipyard near Pluto, engineers worked around the clock on a new kind of drone. Small, fast, and loaded with logic bombs disguised as harmless data packets. These wouldn't explode. They'd infect, corrupt, disable. Back on the Aurora, Nora received a coded message. She read it once, then erased it. "Change of plans," she told her crew. "We're not just watching anymore. We're planting seeds," Eli frowned. "What kind of seeds?" "The kind that grow in silence," she said. That night, the Aurora released 3 tiny probes near a hegemony relay station. The probes attached themselves to the station's outer hull, then went dormant. No signals, no movement. Just waiting. On Earth, President Hayes stood alone in the White House garden. The air was cool. Crickets sang. It felt peaceful. But he knew better. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the enemy was celebrating. They thought they'd broken humanity's spirit. They were wrong. Humanity hadn't broken. It had just stopped pretending, and the galaxy was about to learn the difference. Without warning, every hegemony ship within 50 light-years went silent. Not destroyed. Not damaged in the usual way, just stopped. Navigation cores overheated and melted. Life support systems shut down without error messages. Weapon arrays locked up, refusing commands. On the bridges of warships, alien crews stared at dead screens. Claws frozen over controls that no longer responded. Panic spread faster than fire. No explosions. No debris fields. Just silence, cold and total. High Commander Vrak stood on the bridge of the Iron Maw, his claws digging into the armrests of his command throne. Alarms blared around him, but they were meaningless. No systems answered. He roared in fury, smashing a console with his fist. Sparks flew, but nothing changed. "What is this?" he demanded. "Sabotage?" "Virus, speak!" His officers scrambled, shouting over each other, running diagnostics that returned nothing but static. One young tech, Zell, paled as he pulled up a log file. "Sir, it's in the core encryption," he stammered. "The human trade protocols. From the peace accords. They're inside our systems." Vrak turned slowly. "Explain." Zell swallowed hard. "Years ago, when we accepted their gift of quantum-safe comms, we installed their software. They said it was for secure diplomacy. We thought it was harmless." A cold dread settled over the bridge. "They built a backdoor," Vrak whispered. "Not just a backdoor. A kill switch." Across the hegemony fleet, the same truth dawned. Human-made encryption keys, hidden inside software shared during years of peaceful cooperation, had been remotely activated. Not to spy, not to steal, to disable. Entire warships, once proud and powerful, were now floating tombs, drifting helplessly in the void. Back on Earth, in the dim control room beneath Denver, Ryan Cole watched the chaos unfold on his screen. Green dots, hegemony ships, turned gray one by one. "It worked," Maya Torres said beside him, voice barely above a whisper. Ryan didn't smile. He just nodded. "They never thought we'd use it. They thought we were too soft to weaponize trust." On Mars, Jake Riley stood in the hangar listening to the news feed over his earpiece. Around him, workers paused, tools in hand, as the report came in. "All hegemony vessels in Sector Theta are offline," the voice said. "No hostile action detected from human forces." Jake let out a slow breath. "They asked for a lesson," he said to no one in particular. "We're giving them one." High above Venus, Captain Nora Bennett stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching hegemony ships drift like dead fish. Her crew was silent. "No cheers, no jokes. Just quiet focus. Do we move in?" Eli asked. Nora shook her head. "No, let them sit in the dark. Let them wonder how long it lasts. Let them wonder if it's permanent." She knew the truth. The shutdown wasn't forever. The hegemony would eventually purge the infected code, but by then the message would be clear. Humanity didn't need to fire a single shot to win. On the hegemony command vessel, Vrak finally got a signal through, a weak, scrambled burst from a scout ship near the edge of the blackout zone. The message was short. "Humans did this. They warned us." They meant it. Vrak crushed the datapad in his hand. His rage was now mixed with something new. Fear. How had they not seen it coming? For years, humans had shared technology freely. They'd helped rebuild after natural disasters. They'd sent medical teams to plague-stricken worlds. They'd even rescued hegemony pilots stranded in deep space. Every act of kindness had been logged, studied and dismissed as weakness. Now, that same kindness had been turned into a weapon. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, President Hayes watched a live feed from deep space monitors. Dozens of hegemony ships floated, powerless. Rescue pods launched from some tiny specks against the black. "Are we going to help them?" asked an aide. Hayes didn't look away from the screen. "No, sir, they'll die. They chose this," Hayes said. "We warned them, repeatedly. Now they learn what happens when you mistake mercy for fear." His words were not cruel. They were calm. Final. On the moon at the ruins of Artemis 7, a recovery team in sealed suits walked through the rubble. They found Chris Dawson's dog tag near the comms room. They buried it with honors, though no one spoke. The silence said enough. Back in Portland, Helen Briggs sat on her porch with her grandson. The boy held a small telescope, pointing it at Jupiter. "Are the bad guys gone?" he asked. Helen sipped her tea. Not gone. But they're thinking now. What about us? We're still here, she said. And we're done pretending. In orbit, the Aurora received new orders. Nora read them, then erased the message. Set course for the outer belt, she told her pilot. We've got more seeds to plant. Eli glanced at her. More shutdowns? No, Nora said. This time we leave something else. Something they can't ignore. She didn't say what it was. She didn't need to. Deep in the asteroid belt, a hegemony freighter drifted, its crew huddled in emergency shelters. Oxygen was running low. They sent out distress calls, but no one answered. Then a small drone appeared on their external cameras. It hovered for a moment, then attached itself to the hull. A screen flickered to life inside the bridge. Not a weapon. Not a virus, just words in clear, simple English. Next time. Listen. The drone detached and vanished into the dark. On Earth, in a quiet neighborhood in Austin, a man named Carl fixed his daughter's bike in the driveway. He'd served on a colony ship years ago. He knew what was happening out there. He didn't talk about it. He just worked, hands steady, mind clear. His daughter watched him, then asked, "Are we safe now?" Carl looked up, wiped grease from his hands, and smiled. Safer than they are. Across the solar system, humans returned to their routines. But everything had changed. The fear was gone. In its place was something harder, quieter, stronger. The hegemony had thought humanity's civility was weakness. They were wrong. It had been a choice, and choices can be taken back. The hegemony was broken but not defeated. In the weeks after the silent shutdown, their ruling council tore itself apart. Some warlords demanded total war, vowing to burn every human world to ash. Others whispered that humanity was not to be trifled with, that their kindness had been a mask and beneath it lay something ancient and sharp. The truth was, no one knew what came next. Then a small ship appeared on the edge of Earth's orbit. It flew no weapons. Its hull bore the white sigil of truce, a circle split by a single line, the hegemony's oldest symbol of peace. It sent a simple message. We wish to speak. Earth did not reply right away. For 3 days the ship hung in space, alone and unarmed. Scanners watched it. Fighters circled it, but no one fired. No one even hailed it. The silence was worse than any threat. Finally, a response came. Not from Geneva, not from the White House, but from an old orbital station called Haven 9, abandoned years ago after a solar flare fried its systems. The station had no defenses, no crew. Or so the records said. The hegemony envoy, a mid-ranking officer named Kor, boarded a shuttle and flew to Haven 9. He expected diplomats. He expected negotiations. He found Admiral Paul Grant. Grant stood alone in the station's main bay, wearing a plain uniform with no medals. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, a view screen showed Earth, blue, calm, turning slowly in the sunlight. Kor stepped forward, claws folded in the gesture of respect. Admiral, we come in peace. Grant didn't move. You came to talk. Not to beg. Not to surrender. Just to talk. Kor hesitated. We seek understanding. Understanding? Grant let out a dry laugh. You attacked our colonies. You killed our people. You thought we'd roll over because we build schools and plant trees. Now you want to understand? He walked to a console and tapped a key. The screen changed. Footage played, grainy, raw, real. A classroom on Europa, moments before the bombing. Children huddled under desks. A teacher singing to keep them calm. Then silence. Another clip. Farmers on Titan burying neighbors in frozen soil, their faces streaked with tears but their hands steady. Another medics on Ceres dragging wounded through smoke, their voices hoarse from shouting names. Kor watched, unmoving. His species did not cry, but something in his posture shifted. We did not know, he said quietly. You didn't care, Grant corrected. That's the difference. He turned off the screen. The bay went quiet again. We spent centuries showing the galaxy what peace looks like, Grant said. We shared food with enemies. We healed soldiers who'd tried to kill us. We forgave. Again and again. And you called it weakness. He stepped closer. It wasn't weakness. It was strength. The kind you can't see until it's too late. Kor lowered his head. What do you want from us? Grant didn't answer right away. He walked to a small table and picked up a data chip. It was plain black, unmarked. Take this back to your council, he said. It's not a treaty. It's not a surrender. It's terms. Kor reached for it, but Grant held it just out of reach. Listen carefully, Grant said. You will withdraw all forces from human space. You will return any prisoners. You will never attack a human world again. And if you ever break this, we won't send warnings. We won't disable your ships. We'll erase you. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Kor took the chip. And if we refuse? Grant looked past him out the viewport at the stars. Then you'll learn what we've kept hidden. Not just tech. Not just weapons. The thing we protect more than anything. He didn't say what it was. He didn't have to. Kor bowed deeply. I will deliver your message. As the envoy left, Grant stood alone again. The station creaked around him, old metal groaning in the vacuum. He thought of his daughter safe on Earth. Of the millions who'd never see war but would sleep soundly because others bore the weight. Back on the Hegemony flagship, Vrak listened as Kor reported. The council was silent. Even the warlord said nothing. They showed us children, Kor said. Not soldiers. Not leaders, children, and they didn't boast, they just showed us. Vrak stared at the data chip on the table. What is on it? We don't know, Kor admitted. But I believe them. If we push further, we will not survive. For the first time, Vrak felt doubt. Not fear of weapons, but fear of what lay beneath human restraint. What had they been holding back all this time? On Earth, in a small town in Oregon, Helen Briggs watched her grandchildren play in the yard. The air smelled of rain and grass. Normal, safe. Her grandson ran up, holding a toy spaceship. Grandma, are the aliens gone? She smiled. They're thinking hard about what to do next. And us? We're waiting, she said. But not like before. In orbit, Captain Nora Bennett received new orders. The Aurora powered up its engines, but not for battle. Stand down, the message read. But stay ready, she nodded. Understood. On Mars, Jake Riley finished welding the last plate onto a new freighter. This one wasn't for stealth. It was for trade. For rebuilding, Lena walked up beside him. Peace? Not peace, Jake said. Truce. Big difference. In the control room beneath Denver, Ryan Cole watched as Hegemony ships began to move. Not toward human space, but away. Slowly. Carefully. Maya stood beside him. Do you think they'll keep their word? Ryan shrugged. Doesn't matter. We're ready either way. He tapped a key and a new screen lit up, showing deep space monitors, hidden bases, silent fleets, all waiting, all watching. Back on Haven 9, Admiral Grant powered down the station. Before he left, he placed a single photo on the console, a picture of the Artemis 7 crew, smiling in their uniforms. He touched the frame gently. We warned them, he said. Then he boarded his shuttle and flew home. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity's civility was never weakness. It was a choice, and choices have consequences. Weeks passed. The Hegemony ships turned away. One by one, they left human space, their weapons powered down, their comms silent. No fanfare, no final threats, just retreat. On Earth, life returned to something like normal. Lights came back on in the colonies. Children went back to school on Mars. Freighters resumed their routes through the asteroid belt. But nothing was the same. People moved with a quiet confidence now, as if they had remembered something important about themselves. In a small town in Oregon, Helen Briggs sat on her porch watching her grandchildren chase fireflies in the dusk. The air was warm. The sky was clear. She sipped her tea and smiled. They would never know what had happened out there in the dark. They would never have to hide in bunkers or whisper prayers before sleep. That was the point. Far above, in low orbit, the stealth cruiser Aurora drifted silently. Captain Nora Bennett stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the sensor display. The last Hegemony vessel had crossed the boundary marker 10 hours ago. No tricks, no hidden drones, just empty space where enemies used to be. Stand down, she said to her crew, but keep the cloak ready. Her weapons officer Eli nodded. He didn't relax. None of them did. They knew peace wasn't a promise. It was a pause, and pauses could end. On Mars, Jake Riley stood in the red dust outside the Valles Marineris repair bay. He watched a civilian freighter lift off, its engines glowing soft blue against the rust-colored sky. It carried food, medicine, and new school books, not weapons, not this time. But hidden in its cargo manifest, coded in plain sight, were updated defense protocols, just in case. Lena joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "They really left," she said. "For now," Jake replied. "But we showed them the cost of coming back." Deep in the asteroid belt, a recovery team boarded the ruins of a hegemony supply freighter. It had been abandoned during the shutdown. Inside they found logs, personal items, even a half-finished meal. But no traps, no bombs, just emptiness. They left it there, a monument to what happens when you push too far. Back on Earth, in the Oval Office, President Daniel Hayes sat alone. The room was quiet. No aides, no advisors, just him and the weight of what had been done. On his desk lay a single sheet of paper, the final report from Project Iron Veil. All systems stood down. All hidden fleets powered to standby. The world was safe. He looked out the window at the White House garden. Birds sang. A breeze rustled the leaves. It looked peaceful. It felt peaceful, but he knew better. Peace wasn't the absence of war. It was the presence of strength. In a secure bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Lisa Monroe reviewed the last data stream from deep space monitors. Every human outpost was online, every colony secure. The hegemony had not only withdrawn, they had erased all records of human space from their star charts. Not out of shame, out of respect or fear, maybe both. On the moon, at the site of Artemis 7, a new memorial stood. Simple, unadorned, just names carved into black stone. Among them was Chris Dawson's. Visitors came quietly. They left flowers, notes, sometimes just a handprint on the cold surface. No speeches, no flags, just remembrance. In Portland, Helen's grandson asked her why the stars looked different now. "They don't," she said, "but we do." He didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. High above Venus, the Aurora received its final orders. Captain Bennett read them once, then deleted the message. "Set course for Earth," she told her pilot. "We're going home." Eli looked up. "For good?" "For now," she said. "But we'll be back if needed." She knew they would always be needed. Not to fight, but to watch, to wait, to remind the galaxy that humanity's kindness had limits, and those limits were guarded by something far older than weapons. In a quiet neighborhood in Austin, Carl finished fixing his daughter's bike. She hopped on it and rode down the street, laughing. He watched her go, hands in his pockets, face calm. He had served on the edge of known space once. He knew what humans were capable of. He also knew they chose every day not to show it. That was the real power, not the ability to destroy, but the choice not to, unless they had to. On Mars, a new school opened near the Tharsis domes. Its first lesson wasn't math or science. It was history. The teacher, a woman named Rosa, showed her students footage of the old attacks, not to scare them, but to teach them. "We were kind," she said. "Not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to be." The children listened. Some cried. Others sat very still. All of them understood. Back on Earth, President Hayes stood in the garden one last time that night. The stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, other species were talking about humanity, not as easy prey, not as naive idealists, but as something else, something to be reckoned with, he whispered almost to himself. "We warned them." And he meant it not as a threat, but as a fact. In orbit, the Aurora powered down its weapons for the first time in months. The lights on its bridge dimmed to standby, but its engines stayed warm, ready. Across the solar system, humans lived. They worked, they loved, they built, they healed, and they remembered. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity's civility was never a trait. It was a choice, and choices can be unmade.